Hello and welcome to another episode of Geared Toward Gear. My name is Sean and I am so glad you're here. Today we're taking a look at a knife from Steel Will, which is one of my favorite budget brands currently out of China. And they have been for quite a while, and this is called the Shaula, which is Arabic for stinger. And my understanding is that that is in reference to a specific star in a specific constellation that represents the stinger of a scorpion. So that is what Shaula means. And quickly show you the box here. So there's your model name and number. And this knife does not belong to me. This was sent as part of our pass around group, not by Steel Will, as would be typical, but by JT from JT's Knife Life. So thank you, JT, for offering this up to the group. There was like 7 people that were interested in this knife, which means JT is going to be without his knife for probably close to 2 months, which is extremely generous and gracious of him to offer to do that. So thank you so much, JT. I truly appreciate that. Again, just one more example of how generous people are in this community. So Steel Will, I'm a big fan. Have been ever since I fell in love with the cut jack. And this happens to be one of the mini cut jacks, but this has been my favorite Steel Will for a very long time. This will be the 5th Steel Will that I've reviewed on this channel. So I reviewed the cut jack, the Intrigue, the Modus, and the Lanner. And this knife has officially taken the #1 spot as far as my favorite Steel Will knife that I have personally handled for any length of time. I've had a couple in my hands for like literally 10 seconds. I don't count those. This knife I've had for about a week, and it is the bee's knees. So it costs $50. So there's your price point. And let's get kind of the short version out of the way. We're looking at an overall length of 8 inches, blade length of 3.375 inches, a handle length of 4.6 inches. It comes in at about 3.5 ounces, just a little over 3.5 ounces. We've got G10 on the handles. We've got D2 on the steel. It's a ball bearing washer is going to be your action. It is a flipper with a liner lock, and it is configured for tip-up carry, either right or left-handed. So there's your short version. Let's get a couple size comparisons in right quick. Here's our Rat 1, which is going to be about a 1/2 inch longer than the Shaula, and our Rat Model 2 is going to be probably closer to like an inch shorter than the Shaula. So I think being 8 inches overall, I think is pretty close to like a sweet spot for EDC. For me anyway, 7.5 to 8 inches overall is kind of where I like to be. So I'm digging the overall length, size, proportions. It works for me. So let's talk a little bit more about the blade. We've got a clip point, as you can see, this black wash finish, which is done pretty well. I've seen better black washes, but it's not bad. It came to me razor sharp, hair shaving sharp, after visiting other people, so that's nice. Steel is D2, as I mentioned. It is a flat grind, and if I could nitpick one thing or kind of wish one thing, it would be that they would make that a hollow grind. In my opinion, a hollow grind is simply far superior to a flat grind for EDC, but that's just my opinion. The fact that this is a flat grind does not change my opinion on the knife whatsoever. That's just more of a wish. So the blade, no concerns with it. Got some jimping up top. Got a decent sharpening choil. Not the best one ever, but not too bad. So the blade, I have no issues with. The action is ridiculous, and we're going to talk about that in just a second. You may have kind of seen the way that just kind of dropped shut, but the action on this thing is just stupid smooth. So the handle is G10, which is a bit of a departure from some of their budget models, most of which, like the Cut Jack, the Intrigue, the Modus, have all been FRN and have not had bearings. This is G10, and it does have bearings. It's kind of got this frag pattern almost, which is, for me, almost the perfect level of texture. It is not the least bit aggressive. I could do this all day, but it's grippy. It's just grippy and so freaking solid in my hand, I can't even tell you. So the texturing, I think, was done just beautifully. So I'm digging that about the handle. I do also like the shape, kind of this down sweep. I typically prefer a more neutral, like parallel lines, or even a bit of a kind of bulge near the rear, but in this case, it just works ergonomically, visually. I really do like it. This forward finger choil here is generously sized. It's pretty wide in this dimension, so it's going to accommodate large fingers quite nicely. Just very, very comfortable. I think most people would find this a very usable and ergonomic knife. So no complaints really about the handle. If we can get a good angle here, you'll see that the liners, the steel liners, are heavily skeletonized on this side with a bunch of big holes milled out to reduce the weight. I think I did mention the weight is just over 3.5 ounces. So it's good to see that. It is a liner lock, as I mentioned earlier, locking up at about 40%. No lock rock up and down, tiny bit side to side, enough to concern me. Zero. No issues with the lockup whatsoever. Super easy to disengage. No lock stick. There's a generous pathway for you to get your thumb in there to disengage it, both with the chamfering on the G10 as well as the texturing on the liner itself. So disengaging this thing is a breeze. So very, very fidget friendly, that is for sure. While we're back here, let's take a look at the pocket clip. So this is, again, is kind of a departure from some other budget models from Steel Will, which basically all used this clip, which I think is atrocious. It carries fine, it stays in the pocket, but I just think it's ugly as sin and have never been a fan of it. So they remedied that on the Shaula with a nice deep carry loop over clip where they did carry over that kind of black wash finish, which I think was a very smart decision. It's not nested into the G10 and the hardware is not recessed, but it's still got a generous enough kind of loop over there to accommodate thick jeans, no problem whatsoever. Retention is good, so well done on the pocket clip, Steel Will. Thank you, thank you, thank you for making a good pocket clip. And it even kind of follows the contour of the handle, which is nice. So great job on the clip. It is a pillar construction. There's a couple barrel spacers towards the back, and then one little bitty one here at the very, very back where you could kind of run a lanyard through the barrel spacers and that last little pin right there. It's kind of hard to get a good view of it, but you'd kind of run it through that hole right there. So if you're a lanyard person, you're in business. So handle, material, comfort, texture, pocket clip, lockup, all good things. The action on this is stupid smooth. And what I mean by that is that the way they tuned the detent, the actual action on the ball bearing washers and the lockup, they just all work harmoniously to create a really nice experience. When you flip the knife, it flips effortlessly with authority, locks up strong every single time. You do have some functional jimping on the top of that flipper tab, so very easy to get a purchase on, and it just whips out, locks up strong, disengages easily, and this is where it surprised me. If I can kind of get the flipper tab to not be in the way, it'll just kind of bounce off of my thumbnail when I depress it, if I can get out of the way far enough. And then as I kind of rotate the handle, the blade just kind of falls on its own. Let me do that again. It's so smooth, I can't even tell you. I have not added any oil. It did not come to me covered in oil. It's perfectly centered, so that tells me that somebody did not loosen these pivots. I tested them. They're not crazy snug, but they're where they should be. This is just the action that this knife has, and it is stupid, stupid smooth. I can't even believe it. It really kind of took me by surprise. I'm used to it now, so it's not like, it doesn't blow my mind every time, but like for the first 2 days, I just couldn't stop. So just amazing on the action. So if I could nitpick a couple things, it would be, I'd prefer a hollow grind. I think this huge oversized pivot looks out of place, frankly. If I kind of cover that up, that's a good looking knife, right? I think most of us would agree. It looks good, the lines are nice, the colors are nice. Then when I uncover it quickly, I don't know, to me it's just like this giant black saucer that just doesn't belong. I would much prefer just a standard black Torx screw. I think that's completely unnecessary, and I think it actually detracts from the look, but that's going to be personal preference. You may look at that and think it looks awesome. And if that's the case, then that's great. Another small nitpick is I would have liked for them to carry that black wash finish, not just on the blade and the pocket clip, but also on the pivot and the liners. Again, it's a nitpick, but we have seen knives at kind of even much lower price points, like a Kubi that I reviewed not too long ago, where they had a stonewash blade, clip, pivot, and liners. So we know it can be done at that price point. So that would have been nice, but again, is it a deal breaker? Not even close. So my little nitpicks, like the finish on the liners, the size of the pivot, the fact that it's a flat grind and not a hollow grind, they don't matter to me, practically speaking. I still say this is my new favorite steel will, kind of in the budget line, and it just performs like a dream. Came razor sharp, opened several boxes, several letters, cut some paracord, did a tiny bit of food prep. I did clean the knife up, obviously, once I was done. Did not take it to a strop, and this thing is still hair shaving sharp with just a perfect edge. The grind was done really well. It's nice and even. So yeah, I think the design was great. I think the decisions they made were pretty smart for the most part. And then when it came time to produce the knife in the factory, they executed well. Everything is nicely finished. Everything's nicely rounded. Everything is even and flush. There's nothing about this knife that I can really complain about objectively. It's just little nitpicks. That's it. Overall, I would give this like a 9 out of 10. For a $50 knife, I'd say it's a 9 out of 10. And I'm realizing now as I'm saying this, I've never scored knives ever on a video, but I guess I'm doing it on this video. It gets a 9 out of 10, 8.5 out of 10, something like that. It's great. I've thoroughly enjoyed having and using this for about the last week. And again, thank you so much, JT, for just being so gracious and generous to offer this up to us to look at. So let me know in the comments, what do you think about the steel will Shaula? Do you own one? Do you want one? Do you think it looks nice, or would you pass on this one? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you guys all so much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I'll talk to you very soon.